Welcome to a tale of forbidden love and transformation that spans across the heavens and the earth. Eros, the god of love, and Psyche, a mortal woman of unparalleled beauty, are about to face challenges that would test the very fabric of their hearts. From betrayal and doubt to divine trials, their love will be tested in ways you won't expect. Stick with me until the end of the video to discover how this captivating journey unfolds and how their love conquers all. In the vast expanse of lands ruled by the king, tales were told of 3 daughters, each blessed with a unique grace. Yet, among them, the youngest, Psyche, shone like a star in the dark of night. Her name evoked sighs and wonder, for her beauty transcended all human imagination. Psyche's fame spread swiftly, crossing mountains and rivers. People came from every corner of the kingdom to behold her. Many began to compare her to Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love. Some, driven by devotion, even dared to build altars to Psyche, decorating them with flowers, candles, and offerings. In the temples dedicated to Aphrodite, incense burned in vain. The priests waited for faithful worshippers who no longer came, for they preferred to offer their prayers to the young maiden. Aphrodite, from the lofty heights of Olympus, watched with growing fury and jealousy. How could a mere mortal, an ephemeral being destined to dust, dare to challenge her supremacy? The praises heaped upon Psyche pierced the goddess's heart like poisoned arrows. Every time an offering was missing from her temples, her divine pride was wounded. In the quiet of the night, Aphrodite summoned her son, Eros. The young god, with his golden bow and enchanted arrows, arrived ready to stir desires. With his golden curls and youthful smile, Eros listened to his mother, whose tone left no room for argument. "My son, Psyche has dared to overshadow my glory. Make her fall in love with the ugliest man alive, so she learns not to challenge my perfection." Eros, though always obedient to his mother, remained silent for a moment. Despite his task, a curiosity grew within him for the young woman who had sparked so much attention. Without protest, he accepted the mission and prepared to descend into the mortal world. When Eros reached the royal palace, he found Psyche asleep in her room. Moonlight streamed softly, wrapping her in an ethereal glow. She slept peacefully, unaware of the god's presence. As Eros drew closer, his heart, accustomed to ruling the fates of others, stopped. Psyche's beauty was pure, radiant, and unadorned. "This is the mortal who stole my mother's glory," he thought. Yet, as he gazed at her, he saw no arrogance, only sweetness and a hint of loneliness. He prepared his bow and nocked an arrow. However, distracted by her grace, he stumbled and the arrow grazed him. In an instant, its power struck him, igniting an irresistible love for Psyche. Unable to carry out his mother's command, Eros fled. He returned to the heavens, but thoughts of Psyche haunted him. He couldn't confess his mistake to Aphrodite, yet his love for Psyche grew, a fire he could not extinguish. Eros could not stay away from Psyche. Although he could not reveal himself openly, he watched over her. When Psyche walked through the palace gardens, Eros hid among the branches of the trees, observing her tenderly. When she was sad, the young god ensured that a gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers to lift her spirits. Every gesture, no matter how small, was an attempt to get closer to her without defying his mother's wishes. Aphrodite, seeing that the situation was unchanged, grew suspicious. Why had Eros not yet completed his task? Her plan was becoming complicated, and the shadow of betrayal began to creep into her thoughts. Despite her extraordinary beauty, Psyche lived in solitude. Wherever she went, she drew looks of wonder, but no one dared approach her with the pure heart of a lover. Men, intimidated by her perfection, deemed her unattainable. Worried for her fate, her parents consulted an oracle of Apollo. During the sacrifice, the oracle proclaimed, "Psyche will not marry a mortal, but monstrous creature. She must be taken to a lonely mountain where her husband awaits." Devastated, the king and queen were at a loss, while Psyche accepted her fate with surprising calm. Upon returning to the palace, a grave silence hung over everyone. Psyche's sisters, shocked yet secretly relieved not to be in her position, tried to console her, but every word felt empty. In the following days, the kingdom gathered for her final journey. Wearing a simple white gown, Psyche walked with steady steps, concealing the anguish that weighed on her heart. When they reached the foot of the mountain, The procession stopped. Psyche, embracing her tearful parents, reassured them, "Whatever my fate may be, I will face it." Then she began the ascent. Abandoned on the cold summit of the mountain, Psyche collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by a solitude more intense than anything she had ever experienced. The wind blew cold among the rocks, and the darkness of the night seemed to envelop her in an impenetrable cloak. But just when despair was about to overwhelm her, the wind Zephyr, the gentle messenger of spring, approached her like a soft breath, lifting her gently and carrying her away. She felt the wind caressing her face and hair as the landscape beneath her transformed. Rugged, desolate mountains gave way to green valleys, blooming fields, and enchanted forests. At the end of the journey, Zephyr gently set her down on a meadow soft as silk. When Psyche opened her eyes, she was breathless. Before her stood a magnificent palace of gold and ivory surrounded by lush gardens. Suddenly, a melodious voice rose from nowhere. "Welcome, Psyche. This is your new refuge. Everything you see is yours, and it has been prepared for you." Psyche turned, searching for the source of that voice, but found no one. "Who are you?" she asked in a trembling voice. "I am the one who will take care of you," replied the voice, sweet and reassuring. "Do not fear. Here you will find peace and love. But there is one rule. You must never try to see my face. This is the only pact I ask you to respect." Psyche, confused but comforted by the kindness of the voice, accepted. The following days passed in a dreamlike atmosphere. The young woman grew accustomed to the invisible presence that seemed to watch over her. The night was special. In the darkness, the voice returned, and Psyche found solace in their talks that filled her heart. She soon realized she was no longer alone. Her invisible husband, visiting only in the dark, won her heart with warmth and tenderness, proof of true love. Psyche's days were filled with wonder and love, but the outside world had not forgotten her. Psyche's sisters, having heard about her fortune, were overwhelmed by curiosity and the desire to see with their own eyes what Psyche's life had become. So, one day, at Eros's request, the wind Zephyr brought them to the palace to visit their sister. Breathless in front of the magnificence of the place and the serenity of Psyche, they initially praised her with enthusiasm, but soon their hearts filled with jealousy. Welcomed generously, the sisters listened to Psyche's tales, but the silence about her mysterious husband ignited their suspicions. They began to sow doubts, suggesting that the invisible husband might be a monstrous creature. "Hasn't he forbidden you to see him?" they asked. Psyche, who until that moment had been confident in her husband's love, suddenly felt besieged by doubt. That night, alone, she was tormented by the idea that her husband might be hiding a terrible secret. What if they are right? She wondered, overwhelmed by uncertainty. Determined to uncover the truth, Psyche prepared an oil lamp and a dagger. She waited for night to fall and for her husband to fall asleep beside her. Her heart raced as she lit the lamp, lifting it to illuminate the face of the man she had loved without ever seeing. When the light illuminated the face of her husband, Psyche was left breathless. He was not a monster, but the most beautiful of the gods. Eros, the god of love. His features were perfect, his hair golden like the sun, and his wings light and radiant. Psyche felt overwhelmed by immense joy, but also by deep remorse. She had doubted him, breaking the promise she had made. As she gazed at Eros, a drop of hot oil fell from the lamp and burned his skin. Eros woke up suddenly, and his eyes filled with disappointment when he saw the lamp and the dagger in Psyche's hands. "What have you done, Psyche?" he said, his voice full of pain. "I asked you for only one thing, to trust me, and you have betrayed my trust." Psyche, overwhelmed by remorse, tried to explain herself. "Forgive me, my lord," she pleaded. "I was tormented by doubt, but now I know that my love for you is sincere." But Eros, wounded not only in body but also in soul, shook his head. "Love cannot exist without trust," he said. And with those words, he spread his majestic wings and flew away, leaving Psyche alone in the silence of the night. The enchanted palace vanished, dissolving like a dream at dawn. Psyche was left alone, immersed in a desolate desert, with a broken heart and the weight of her mistake. The only thing that remained was the memory of her love for Eros and the determination to find him, no matter what trials she had to face. Determined to win back her divine husband, Psyche embarked on a journey that led her through desolate landscapes and unknown dangers. However, her steps inevitably brought her under the watchful gaze of Aphrodite, Eros' mother, who already harbored resentment towards the young mortal. Filled with jealousy and anger, Aphrodite decided to punish Psyche for daring to aspire to the love of her son. When Psyche presented herself before the goddess, humble and pleading, Aphrodite accepted her request to win back Eros, but only on the condition that she would have to overcome several trials, which Aphrodite knew to be impossible. Aphrodite led Psyche into a room filled with various seeds: barley, millet, poppy, lentils, and many others. "You must separate these seeds by the end of the day," she ordered in a cold voice. "If you fail, there will be no second chances." Psyche sat in front of the chaotic pile, desperate. The task was clearly impossible for one person. As tears began to fall from her face, a miracle occurred. An army of ants suddenly appeared. Driven by a sense of compassion for the young woman, the tiny creatures set to work. With remarkable efficiency, they separated the seeds one by one, completing the task before nightfall. When Aphrodite returned and saw the completed work, she curled her lips into a sarcastic smile. "Don't think it's over. The next trial will be even harder," she announced. The following day, Aphrodite ordered Psyche to collect golden wool from a flock of sheep grazing along the banks of a river. However, these animals were not ordinary. They were fierce and dangerous, endowed with devastating strength. "Return with this wool, or it will be the end for you," Aphrodite said in a threatening tone. Psyche approached the river, trembling with fear. But as she observed the sheep, a sweet voice rose from the nearby reeds. It was the whisper of the reeds themselves, moved by pity, that provided her with valuable advice. "Do not approach the sheep during the day when they are aggressive. Wait for nightfall. Then you can gather the strands of wool that remain tangled in the branches and thorns." Following this advice, Psyche was able to collect enough golden wool without facing direct danger. When Psyche returned to Aphrodite with the precious wool, the goddess feigned admiration. "It seems you have luck on your side, but we will see how you fare with the next trial," she said with a sneer. For the third trial, Aphrodite ordered Psyche to fill a flask with water from the Styx, a sacred river that flowed through the most remote and dangerous regions of the world. Its turbulent and inaccessible currents rushed between steep rocks, and anyone who approached would be swept away. Psyche, now accustomed to the impossible, ventured toward the indicated location. When she arrived, she realized that reaching the river was a task far beyond her abilities. While she despaired at the sight of the river flowing beneath her, a majestic eagle swooped down from the sky. The bird, a symbol of Zeus, offered to help her. With its powerful wings, the eagle grasped the flask and flew across the treacherous landscape, filling it with water from the Styx and bringing it back to Psyche. With the flask in hand, Psyche returned to Aphrodite, hoping the goddess would finally be satisfied. But Aphrodite had no intention of stopping. "One trial remains," she declared. "If you fail, you will never have the chance to see my son again." For the final trial, Aphrodite instructed Psyche to descend into the underworld and obtain a portion of Persephone's beauty to keep in a box. This was a task that no mortal could accomplish without succumbing. Psyche, however, was not discouraged. Following the advice of an enchanted tower along her path, she learned how to survive the journey to the underworld. She needed to bring 2 coins to pay Charon, the ferryman, and 2 loaves of bread to appease Cerberus, the 3-headed dog guarding the entrance. The tower also instructed Psyche to avoid speaking to any of the souls she encountered, as they would try to distract her with various pleas. She was to ignore them and proceed on her way. Upon reaching Persephone, Psyche explained her mission. The queen of the underworld, impressed by her determination, agreed to help her and handed her the box containing a portion of her beauty. Carefully holding the box, Psyche returned to the world of the living. However, Psyche's curiosity overwhelmed her. Thinking that a bit of divine beauty could help her win back Eros, she opened the box. But inside, there was no beauty. Instead, there was a deep sleep that immediately enveloped her, causing her to fall into an eternal stupor. Aphrodite, observing everything from afar, took pleasure in Psyche's apparent failure. Psyche lay motionless, enveloped in a deep sleep, like a lifeless ivory statue. Eros, from his refuge among the clouds, had never stopped loving Psyche. Despite the pain of betrayal, his heart remained bound to the mortal who had dared to challenge the gods for love. When he learned of her fall, the young god did not hesitate. He soared into the sky, crossing heavens and lands, until he reached the place where Psyche lay asleep. As Eros approached, he felt a tightening in his heart. The beauty of Psyche, though lifeless, still had the power to touch the deepest chords of his soul. Gently, he knelt beside her and with one of his golden arrows, lightly brushed the young woman's chest. The magic contained in the arrow broke the spell, and Psyche opened her eyes. Their gazes met, filled with emotion, and for a moment the world seemed to stand still. "Eros," Psyche whispered, tears in her eyes. "Forgive me for my weakness and my curiosity. I put our love in danger." Eros smiled gently at her. "Our love is stronger than any mistake, my beloved. But now we must face one last obstacle." Knowing that their union would never find peace as long as Aphrodite remained hostile, Eros made a bold decision. He flew to Mount Olympus to present his plea to Zeus, the king of the gods. Eros explained to the father of the gods the difficulties he and Psyche had faced and asked for his protection. Zeus, struck by the devotion and courage of the young god, decided to intervene. He summoned a divine assembly and called Aphrodite before him. He laid out the facts to the other gods and proclaimed his decision to transform Psyche into a goddess. This gesture would seal the triumph of love over all obstacles. The goddess of beauty, despite her wounded pride, could not oppose the will of the king of the gods. Psyche was called to Mount Olympus, where Zeus himself welcomed her. In front of the gaze of the gods, he offered her a cup of ambrosia, the nectar that conferred immortality. "Drink, Psyche," said Zeus with a benevolent smile, "and from this day forth, you shall be one of us. Your love and perseverance have made you worthy to walk among the immortals." Psyche raised the chalice with trembling hands, aware of the significance of this moment. As she drank the divine nectar, she felt her body transform. Mortality dissolved, making way for a new eternal essence. The gods applauded, recognizing in her not only beauty, but also the strength and determination that had brought her to this point. With Psyche now immortal, nothing could obstruct her union with Eros. The gods organized a grand wedding, worthy of the epic nature of their love story. Aphrodite herself, having overcome her resentment, contributed to the preparations, embellishing the ceremony with her grace and splendor. Zeus officiated the ceremony, officially uniting Eros and Psyche as husband and wife. "May your love," he proclaimed, "be an eternal example for mortals and immortals alike, a testament to the strength that overcomes every trial." From their divine union, a daughter named Voluptas was born, symbolizing the pleasure and joy that arise from true love. Her birth was celebrated with great enthusiasm by all of Olympus, as it represented the harmony achieved after many difficulties. Eros and Psyche lived forever in Olympus, sharing a love that no adversity could ever break. Their story continued to be told through the ages, inspiring poets, artists, and lovers. It demonstrated how, even in the face of the toughest challenges, the human soul could rise toward the divine and find eternal happiness. Thanks for joining me in this captivating journey through the story of Eros and Psyche. I hope you enjoyed the twists and turns of their incredible love story. I'm Myth and Shadows, and here I narrate stories from mythology, literature, and the darker corners of horror. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more amazing tales. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Psyche was justified in her actions? How do you feel about love that must overcome such impossible trials? Let me know what you think. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the myths and shadows.